I found my wife's affair with her boss, which started weeks after we signed a prenup for $250, $0, and now she's claiming I'm the one stealing from our joint account while secretly planning to sell our house and split the hundreds of thousands in property. And I only discovered because she accidentally sent me the escrow papers. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, staring at an email on my phone that changes everything. It's a simple escrow document, just a routine closing notice, but the name on the account. That's when everything hit me like a punch to the gut. My wife, she's been acting strange lately, distant, sharp, dismissive, and I chalked it up to stress or work stuff. Turns out it was something way worse. We'd been married for 3 years now, and we just signed a prenup a few weeks before, worth $250, $0. I thought we were solid, at least on paper. We had a decent life, good jobs, a nice house, some savings. But I started noticing little things. She'd hide her phone more, cancel plans last minute, and there were these odd late-night texts that she'd quickly delete. I'd ask her about them and she'd brush me off, call me paranoid. I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind. Then last week, I was cleaning up some files on my laptop and saw an email from her boss, Mark. Nothing unusual about that. She's been working at his firm for a couple of months now, and I knew they'd been working late together a lot, but I never suspected anything beyond professional camaraderie. But this email, it was a confirmation of a meeting scheduled for tonight, and attached to it was a link to the escrow papers for a house, her name, her signature, the property listed as pending sale. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. I opened the attachment and there it was, detailed documents showing that she was planning to sell our house, split the proceeds, and walk away. I couldn't make sense of it. Why would she do that? We had just signed the prenup and I thought she was happy. But this was betrayal on a level I'd never experienced. It felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. The worst part, I remembered the nights she'd come home late, the way she'd avoid my questions, the way she'd get defensive when I pressed her about her day. It all pointed to one thing: she was planning something behind my back. And then it hit me: she'd been having an affair with Mark. It made sense now. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in property investments. She'd been cheating on me, and all the while she was planning to take everything we had. I didn't sleep that night. I kept looking at the email, rereading the documents, trying to find some explanation or loophole. But there was nothing. Just cold, hard proof that my wife was betraying me, planning to leave me with nothing but broken trust, and a house she intended to sell out from under me. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of betrayal all at once. How could she lie so blatantly? How could she pretend everything was fine while she was secretly plotting her escape? The next morning, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just let this slide. I needed answers, truth, or whatever she was willing to give. I waited until she was in the kitchen, sipping her coffee, acting innocent as if she hadn't just sent me the papers in the middle of the night. I showed her the email, the documents, and watched her face change from confusion to panic. "What is this? Are you planning to sell our house? Are you cheating on me with Mark?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing, trying to keep her composure. "You're overreacting," she spat. "That's not what you think. The house stuff is just a business deal. Mark's just helping me invest. And I don't know what you're talking about with the affair. You're imagining things." I couldn't believe her lies. How could she be so brazen? I felt a surge of fury. I told her I knew about the affair, about the secret meetings, about the escrow papers. Her face turned red and she started yelling, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying, of ruining her life. She kept insisting she loved me, that this was all a mistake, that Mark was just a mentor figure, that I was just jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I saw through her bullshit. She was lying, trying to spin her way out of it. She was planning to take our house, our savings, everything we'd worked for, and run off with Mark. And I was left standing there, feeling like a fool. I had trusted her, loved her, and she had been cheating on me behind my back from the start. The betrayal cut deep, and I knew my life was about to change forever. I had no idea what to do next, but one thing was clear: this wasn't going to end quietly. I was furious, betrayed, and hurt, but I also knew I had to think about my next move carefully. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without a fight. The confrontation didn't go the way I'd imagined it would, but honestly, I didn't expect her to just break down and confess. It's the kind of woman who's always been bitchy, manipulative, and quick with her lies. So she doubled down, trying to spin it as if I was the crazy one. She kept insisting she was innocent, that Mark was just a mentor and friend, and that I was paranoid for suspecting her. She told me I was imagining things, that the escrow papers must be some kind of mistake or that I had misunderstood her. But I wasn't buying it. I'd seen the email, the documents, the way her phone kept buzzing with late-night messages. I had enough to go on, and my gut told me she was lying through her teeth. Still, I wanted her to admit it outright, to hear her say it. So I pressed her harder, asking her why she'd hide her phone, why she'd lie about her whereabouts, and why she'd be so secretive if she had nothing to hide. Her face twisted into a sneer. "You're just jealous because Mark pays attention to me," she snapped. "He's the one who really cares about me, not you. You're just a boring, insecure husband who can't keep up. You think you're so smart with your money, but you're just a damn fool. I don't owe you explanations anyway. I'm done with your accusations." That's when I saw the real her, the bitchy, manipulative side that she's been hiding behind her pretty face. She was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt my own instincts. But I knew better. I could let her get away with it. I told her I'd found the proof, that I was going to take action, and that I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. Her eyes narrowed, and she started yelling at me, calling me all kinds of names: paranoid, insecure, a control freak. She said I was ruining everything, that I was just jealous because she was finally getting some real attention. She claimed Mark was just a friend, that I was overreacting, and that I was the one stealing from our joint account, something she threw into the mix just to throw me off. She tried to make me doubt myself, to make me feel guilty for even suspecting her. I felt my blood boil. I had enough. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, that I was done being manipulated. I said I was going to get a lawyer, look into everything, and that I was prepared to fight for what's mine, our house, our savings, everything. Her face went pale for a moment, then she snapped back with some bullshit about how I'd ruin everything, how she'd make sure I paid for this. That's when I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't trust her anymore. She was a liar and a manipulator, and I was starting to realize just how deep her betrayal went. I didn't want to lose everything, but I also didn't want her to get away with this. I was furious, hurt, and confused all at once. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd been cheating on me with her boss, planning to sell our house and walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting her for so long. I decided I'd gather all the evidence I could, talk to a lawyer, and start planning my next move. But deep down, I knew the damage was already done. She'd lied, schemed, and betrayed me in the worst way possible. And I was left standing there, feeling like my whole world was falling apart. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house, not with her anymore. The trust was broken, and I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. After that explosive morning, I didn't sleep much. My mind kept racing, replaying everything I'd uncovered: her secret emails, the escrow papers, her lies. I knew I couldn't just confront her and expect everything to be okay. No, I had to be smart. I started plotting my next steps carefully. First, I needed proof, more than just my suspicions. I needed concrete evidence, something I could use legally if it came to that. I spent the next couple of days digging into her phone and computer, trying to find more clues. She was careful, but not careful enough. I found encrypted messages with Mark, receipts from hotel stays she didn't tell me about, and even some bank transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Each new piece of evidence made my stomach churn more. She was planning her escape, and I was just now realizing how far gone she was. Meanwhile, kept up her act of innocence, throwing tantrums, accusing me of spying, insisting I was just jealous or paranoid. She claimed I was trying to control her, that I didn't trust her. Her words were like knives. She was trying to turn it around, make me feel guilty for suspecting her. But I saw through her. I knew she was lying, and I was determined to prove it. I decided to confront her again, this time armed with more proof. I sat her down in the living room, pulled out my laptop, and laid everything out on the table. I showed her the bank transfers, the hotel receipts, the encrypted messages. Her face drained of color. She stammered, tried to deny everything, called me crazy, said I was making it all up. "Why are you doing this, Jake?" she asked, voice trembling. "I love you. Mark's just helping me with some investments. It's nothing more than that. You're overreacting like always." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You're planning to sell our house, aren't you? You're cheating on me with Mark, and you're trying to leave me with nothing. I found the escrow papers. You're not fooling anyone anymore." She tried to brush it off, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She started yelling at me, calling me a paranoid fool, claiming I was ruining everything. She insisted she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. But her words sounded hollow. I knew she'd been lying all along, hiding her affair, planning her escape while I was clueless. That day I felt the full weight of betrayal. I was angry, hurt, and furious. How could she do this? How could she lie and cheat behind my back? I'd trusted her, loved her, and she had played me for a fool. I started to see her for what she really was: selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything we built together. I told her I was done. Done with her lies, her deception. I told her I was contacting a lawyer and that I'd be taking control of the situation, that I wasn't going to let her sell our house or run off with Mark and our money. I could see the anger flash in her eyes, but I didn't care. I was done being the fool. I had enough evidence, enough proof, and now it was time to take action. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and planning. I reached out to a lawyer, started gathering all the financial documents, and prepared myself for what was coming. I knew she was trying to spin her way out of it, but I also knew that I had enough to fight her in court if it came to that. She was reckless, and her lies were catching up with her. In the meantime, kept up her bitchy attitude, trying to gaslight me, trying to make me doubt myself. But I was done listening. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd betrayed me in the worst way, and I knew I had to protect myself and what was left of my dignity. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, not without a fight. Over the next few days, I threw myself into action. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat right. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her lies, her sneers, that sickening look of someone who thought she could get away with everything. I contacted a lawyer I found through a friend, someone who specialized in divorce and asset disputes. I wanted to get ahead of her, to make sure I'd be protected before she could sell the house or transfer any more money. The lawyer, a no-nonsense guy named Mark, listened carefully to my story. I handed him all the evidence I'd collected: texts, emails, bank statements, the escrow papers. He told me I had a strong case, especially with the proof of her planning to sell the house and the affair with Mark. His advice was straightforward. I needed to file for an emergency injunction to prevent her from selling or transferring any assets. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. I was finally taking control, but I knew this was just the beginning of a very nasty fight. Meanwhile, kept up her act of innocence, acting hurt, crying, claiming I was ruining everything. She'd show up at the house trying to guilt me into dropping everything, saying she loved me and that she'd never do anything to hurt me. She even threw in some tears, trying to make me feel guilty for accusing her without cause. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I saw her for what she really was: an unfaithful, manipulative bitch who was trying to get her way. One day, she stormed into the living room, demanding I drop the lawyer, that I was overreacting. She yelled, "You're just jealous. Mark and I are just working on some investments. You're paranoid, Jake. You're ruining our marriage over some stupid emails." She looked at me with those cold, bitchy eyes, like she thought she could just lie her way out of everything. But I didn't buy it. I told her I wasn't going to let her sell our house or take a penny more than she deserved. I told her I was prepared to go to court and I wasn't backing down. She huffed, rolled her eyes, and then started throwing accusations at me, saying I was stealing from our joint account, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. That was the part that really ticked me off. She's always been good at twisting things, making me look like the bad guy. But I had the bank statements, the proof of transfers she tried to hide. I showed her some of it, and her face turned red with rage. I knew she was trying to spin her lies, but I was done playing her game. I told her that I'd caught her, and that I'd make sure she paid for her betrayal. I was furious but determined. I told her I'd be going to court to get a judge's order to freeze our assets and stop her from selling the house. I wanted to make sure she couldn't run away with everything, that she'd have to face the consequences of her actions. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the documents I'd printed out. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. All the years I'd loved her, trusted her, wasted. She'd been cheating on me with her boss, planning to sell our house, and lying to my face every step of the way. I felt a mixture of heartbreak and rage. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I couldn't fix this, not with her, not after everything I'd uncovered. I had to get out, protect what little I had left, and start over. The thought was terrifying, but I knew it was the only way forward. I was done being the fool, done being the victim. Now I was just trying to get through the storm she'd created and somehow come out the other side still standing. The legal preparations moved faster than I expected. The lawyer filed for the emergency injunction, and within days, the court granted a temporary freeze on the house and all significant accounts. It was a small victory, but it felt like I finally had some control. Was furious when she found out. She screamed, called me every name in the book, and accused me of trying to ruin her life. She said I was just jealous because she was finally getting the attention she deserved from Mark, and that I was the one stealing from our joint account, something I had no part in. The truth was, I was just trying to protect myself. I knew she'd been planning this for weeks, probably longer, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything we'd built. I'd caught enough evidence to make her realize I wasn't going down without a fight. Still, the whole situation was making me sick. Every time I saw her bitchy face, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could she be so selfish, so manipulative? I decided I needed to confront her again, face to face, and get some kind of explanation. I told her she needed to come clean, and if she didn't, I was going to take her to court for full custody of the house and a fair division of assets. She looked at me with that familiar bitchy smirk, as if she thought she could just lie her way out of everything. But I had enough proof now, and I was ready to fight her for what was mine. She finally broke down a little, trying to spin her story, saying Mark was just a mentor, that she'd never cheat on me, that I was just paranoid and jealous. She claimed she loved me and that all the emails and receipts were just a misunderstanding. I told her I didn't believe her anymore, that I had enough evidence to prove she was planning to sell the house and that her affair with Mark was real. Her face twisted with anger, and she snapped back that I was trying to ruin her reputation. It was then that I decided I couldn't keep pretending. I told her I was done listening to her lies. I was going to get a divorce, and I was going to fight for everything she was trying to steal from me. I felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about standing up for myself after being betrayed so badly. I knew she'd do everything she could to spin things her way, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, and I was ready to see this through to the end. That evening, I sat down and started drafting a list of everything I needed to do. I contacted the lawyer again, arranged for a forensic accountant to review our finances, and prepared myself mentally for the fight ahead. I realized I had to be strategic. If she was planning to sell the house, I had to act fast. I also knew I needed to be prepared for her to try and make herself look innocent, to manipulate the situation. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. In the days that followed, this bitchy attitude only intensified. She started showing up at the house more often, trying to guilt me, trying to get me to drop the legal proceedings. She accused me of ruining her future, of trying to control her. She even accused me of stealing money from our joint account, something I knew she'd been trying to do herself. The lies kept pouring out of her, and I kept my focus on the bigger picture, protecting myself and making sure she didn't walk away with everything. I kept feeling the sting of betrayal, how she'd been lying to my face, hiding her affair, secretly planning to leave me and take everything. But I also felt a strange resolve. I'd been naive for too long, trusting her blindly. Now I was fighting back. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't stay in that marriage anymore. I had to cut my losses and move on. It hurt to admit that, but I couldn't keep living in her web of lies. I needed to reclaim my life one step at a time. The court date finally arrived, and I felt like I was walking into a war zone. Showed up looking every bit the bitchy, manipulative woman she's always been, trying to plaster on that fake smile, acting like she was the innocent victim. But I knew better now. I had all the evidence, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer laid out everything: proof of her affair, the plans to sell the house, the transfers she'd been making behind my back. His face was a mask of anger and frustration. She tried to deny everything, to spin her lies, but the judge saw through her. My lawyer presented the bank statements, the escrow papers, the encrypted messages she'd missed deleting. It was enough to convince the court she was planning to cheat me out of my share, to sell our property without my knowledge or consent. In the end, the judge issued a permanent order to freeze the house and all related assets. Was furious, screaming that I was ruining her life, that I was just jealous and controlling. But I didn't care anymore. I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally taken control of the wreckage she'd left behind. The divorce was finalized a few months later. I got custody of the house, and she was ordered to pay her share of the property and some monetary compensation for the damages caused by her lies and betrayal. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was mine. I learned a lot through this mess, about trust, about being careful with who you love, and about the importance of protecting yourself from manipulative people. Looking back, I realize I was blind for too long. I ignored the signs, convinced myself everything was fine. But betrayal has a way of stripping away the illusions. Was never the woman I thought she was. She was selfish, manipulative, and willing to throw everything away for some stupid affair. I don't hate her anymore. I just feel sorry for her, for the way she threw away a good marriage over her greed and her ego. Now I'm rebuilding my life. I've started therapy, focusing on healing and trusting again in my own way. I don't regret loving her, but I do regret not seeing the warning signs sooner. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone in a similar situation, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small signs, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Because if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. And in the end, the truth always comes out, one way or another.